So you're thinking about buying an RC tank and you want to know a little more about them and what they are and how they work. Well, my name's Gary and I've been in the RC tank hobby for about 3 years now. I've been building static models for about 40. And I'll try and give you a quick overview of the basics of these tanks and what they are and how they work. Now, your 1/16 scale battle tanks primarily come in two different varieties, and that's airsoft and IR. Airsoft tanks fire a 6mm airsoft BB like this. They're plastic. They're not particularly dangerous. They won't break the skin. You don't really want to take one in the eye. They'll fly about 80 feet or so. These tanks are rated for children ages 14 and up, and I think that's a big part of the reason. But that's the first variety, is airsoft, and the other variety is infrared. Now, on infrared tanks, they use infrared technology to battle against each other. And each IR tank will have an IR emitter. On this tank, it's mounted right here in the mantlet, and this broadcasts IR code very much like the remote control for your television set does. Every tank will also have a receiver, which is also known as an apple or a mushroom, that can be removed when not battling. It just plugs in right there, and that picks up the IR code from other tanks. So by sending and receiving IR code from other tanks, you can register and receive hits. And when you have registered enough hits against your opponent, his tank will then be dead and out of the fight. Now, they have IR tank clubs all over the world, and this is a very popular hobby. The biggest indoor tank battlefield in the world is located in Danville, Virginia, and they just have them all over the place. I know they're big in Spain, all over Europe, in the UK. It's just becoming a really popular hobby. And so the next thing we should probably move to is the different brands of tanks. Now, the gold standard has always been, and probably always will be, Tamiya tanks. I do not own a Tamiya tank. I don't have one to show you. I do have one Tamiya RC vehicle, and that is this Kugelwagen, which is RC and runs on its own power, as does the M16 half-track hiding behind the ME262 up there. Now, Tamiya does not do airsoft, but they are the standard IR battle system. So if you buy one of these tanks, it will come with the stock Henglong Taigen battle system, and if you want to battle in a club with Tamiya type tanks, you're going to have to upgrade to what they call a Tamiya compatible battle tank. I'll show you one of those in just a minute. So those are the two basic types, IR and airsoft. And your basic brands are Tamiya, the gold standard, and then you have Henglong, which is kind of entry-level tanks like this Tauschpanzer that I paid $125, including shipping, but I've painted it and put on metal tracks and stuff and done a lot of work to it. Probably got about $300 or $350 into it now. And those are Henglong. Now, they used to make IR tanks, but they're getting out of it. Taigen still makes IR tanks, and this is a Taigen IR T34. This is an IMEX Taigen. The IMEX model company is down in Florida, and they are associated with both Taigen and Toro tanks, and Waltersons for their 1/72 scale. IMEX is just terrific. They've got great tanks at great prices. They got the best customer service I've ever found. If you're in the States and can deal with IMEX, that is just really lucky for you, because they're just a great company to do business with, and they got lots of great stuff. And their main guy down there is Eric Edwards, and he's a tanker himself. He comes up with a lot of innovations for these things. He's just a really great guy to deal with. So back to the subject at hand. Now we'll take a look inside one of these bad boys and see just a little bit about how they actually work. This, like I said, is a Toro, an IMEX Toro Sturm Tiger. It runs on this controller. This is the radio, or TX, or handset, or transmitter. It has two joysticks and two switches and an on-off switch. The on-off switch gives you an indicator light that you have power. The joysticks, the left one controls turret rotation or traverse. Forward is fire main cannon, and rear gives you gun elevation. The gun cycles down and up and down and up. You have a switch to turn the tank on and off, and a switch for machine guns. Later I'll show you how I modified this to a push button. There's also a trim knob right here that can adjust the trim for the tank. The right joystick is forward, reverse, left, right. You can get super spin or a 360 turn, where one track runs one way and the other runs the other way, and the tank turns right in its own track by going all the way to one side or the other. So that's how the controller for this tank works, but different tanks come with different controllers. This is a Heng Long controller for the old 27 megahertz tanks, and it has a metal aerial on it. The Taizhen and the newer Heng Longs are all 2.4 gigahertz as opposed to 27 megahertz, and this is the newer Heng Long style. I've got the controller, or the MFU, which stands for multifunction unit, attached to this receiver just so it doesn't get lost. But these also have a stubby plastic antenna. Most of the tanks coming out now that are being produced new are 2.4 systems. Okay, so now not all tanks will have a lift-off top, but these two do. The little Tauschpanzer has a door on the bottom to access the battery box, and that's where you store and change your battery. But this tank opens with a lift-off top, and you can see on the inside that there's really not a whole lot to it. This is a front drive tank, so the gearboxes or transmissions, the gearboxes are in the front, one on each side, each run by its own electric motor. Don't pay any attention to this component. I added that aftermarket. It comes with the control unit. This is the brain of the tank. It's known as the MFU, or multifunction unit. You might also hear it referred to as a motherboard or a receiver. In the 2.4 units, the receiver is built into the MFU, so the transmitter talks directly to the MFU without going through a separate receiver first. In the older 27 megahertz, you have a separate receiver. But that's how you talk to the tank from the transmitter, is through the receiver in the MFU. It's got a battery, 7.2 volt, which will either be nickel metal hydrate, NIM, or nickel cadmium. NiCad, I think only Heng Long still has tanks with NiCads in them. This battery should run this tank for 25 to 30 minutes, but you can purchase aftermarket batteries that will run a tank for an hour or more. Then you have a speaker for sound, and a smoke machine to give you exhaust smoke out of the rear. You also have on-off switches for main power, smoke on and off, and volume. That's the basic configuration of most tanks. On the Sturmtiger, the switches are behind a door in the rear of the tank, but on the Tigers, they're underneath a hatch in the front, and on a lot of tanks, the switches will be underneath the tank itself. It varies depending on what model of tank you have. The IR tanks have a very similar lower, and in fact this Tiger 1 has the exact same lower hull as a Sturmtiger. On this one I have removed the wires, or unhooked the wires, so that I could lift the hull top off the tank to show you what I'm talking about. On this one, the on-off switch is mounted so that you access it from this hatch right here. And basically everything else is still the same. You've got your transmissions, your battery, your MFU, your smoke machine, and your speaker. This is the 8-pin plug that helps to connect the MFU to the stuff in the upper hull. Now, an IR upper hull will have a lot more wires and stuff on the bottom because it has a lot more stuff to do up there. An IR hull has a high velocity muzzle flash, a recoil motor, an IR emitter, an IR sensor, whereas an airsoft tank basically just has a trigger switch and the 8-pin cable, and that's it, that runs from top to bottom. It's very simple. The IRs are more complicated because they have a lot more stuff they have to accomplish. I'll give you a demonstration of the IR tanks in just a second here. So that's basically what's inside an RC tank. Now you can upgrade and go all different directions with this hobby, and that's one of the things that's really surprised me, is some of the roads that this hobby has taken me down. For example, there's a sewing machine. What does a bachelor need with a sewing machine? Unless he wants to try and make 1/16 scale GP medium tent kits, you know, there's a Canon T5 Rebel camera that I paid some pretty good money for, just so I could take decent still photos of the tanks outside. You can get the tanks in many, many different varieties from the different companies. This is also an IMEX Taizhen Tiger 1, and this is pretty much a full-blown Tamiya-compatible battle tank. You can see the receiver unit here that lets this radio talk to the tank. This is a Turnigy 9X, and is a much more sophisticated radio. This tank runs on what they call an IBU2, which is the main control board. It runs on LiPo batteries. Still got the same speaker and smoke machine, but some of my tanks have got pretty extensive sound systems in them. Some tanks have as many as 3 different speakers. This tank also has a different apple or mushroom than the other one that you saw on the other Tiger 1, because this is an Impact, which is Tamiya compatible, so it mimics a Tamiya apple. You can pick up tanks like this, the IMEX Taigen Sherman. This one I've upgraded to a Clark TK22 control board, and it's airsoft, and it's just a great little tank. I made some major modifications to my IMEX Taigen Walker Bulldog and turned it into an anti-aircraft tank. This is my IMEX Taigen M26 Pershing, another Toro half-track that I removed the quad 50s from to turn it into an M3. This is an IMEX Taigen Stug 3 that I have running on an IBU controller on this radio, which is a Hobby King T6 transmitter, and it's only about $25. You can find a lot of good deals on a lot of electronics, and the prices are coming down every day. Another great radio that's much more sophisticated is the i6, and that runs the Mado All-Metal Panzer III, and that radio only costs about $50. The Mado All-Metal Panzer III is about the closest you'll get, or I should say Mado ready-to-run tanks are about the closest you'll get to complete Tamiya compatibility right out of the box. I think there's an issue with the flashers on the Apple that you have to add to the Mado tank to make it completely compatible, but it's pretty close. It comes with a hobby-grade control board known as a Clark TK22, and it comes with a radio very similar to the T6, which is a rebranded FlySky radio. Now, hopefully you're seeing this in a thread so that you'll be able to ask questions, you know, if I miss something about lingo and stuff like that. But if you're watching it on my YouTube channel, just kind of take a look around and check out some of the various videos. You'll find all kinds of things about RC tanks, everything from how to break in gearboxes to putting in a slip ring to a basics on airsoft. You can also get into other vehicles like this truck. This is an Opel Blitz, a 3-ton truck. This is in 1/16 scale, completely RC. Turn signals, sounds, got a horn, the whole deal. Here's an IMEX Toro Jagdtiger, great tank, one of their latest. This this Jagd Panther started out as a Heng Long tank. I then added an Asiatam lower hull to it, and what was a $125 tank is now worth about $800. Got an IBU in there. There's other areas too, such as FPV. I've got this tank set up with a Mobius camera that will take FPV video that I can download to my computer, and I can drive the tank through these goggles. This will give me complete tank commander view from this camera when I'm driving this tank, and believe me, it's more fun than ought to be legal. They also make the little Panzer IV. This is an IMEX Taigen, just a great little tank, as is the Panther G, another IMEX, another great little tank. So now I'll give you a quick demonstration on the IR systems of the stock Heng Long Taigen style tanks, as well as quickie with an airsoft tank. Make a couple adjustments here. I'm going to move you guys back here where you can see. Okay, I got to turn on a couple of tanks. We turn on the radios first. Then we turn on the tanks. 1, 2, 3. Turn some on. First I'll bring the T-34 out here where you guys can see it. And I'll show you what the barrel recoil, or the track recoil, is all about. Now this tank has both barrel recoil and track recoil. When I fire the cannon, both the barrel recoils and the tank like jerks back like that. A lot of people eliminate that track recoil. I do myself. I have done so in this Tiger tank that I'm going to bring out here so you can see it. Now this one won't have track recoil, but it will have barrel recoil. And you'll see the T-34 answer showing that it's been hit by squirming around a little bit. And that's how it works. When the T-34 in this system takes 5 hits, it's then dead, and you'll have to shut it down and start it again before you can use it again. We'll bring out this Panzer III, a Tauschpanzer. I got a little airsoft target set up right there. This is an airsoft tank. I've got a Komodo in it, so there's no track recoil. You can see it bouncing that paper. A good airsoft unit will actually make the small BBs go right through one sheet of paper, sometimes two. So there you go, fellas. There's a basic little introduction to RC tanks and what they are and how they work. I hope I didn't miss anything. I'm sure I did. But like I said, if you're seeing this in a thread, you'll be able to ask questions. If you're on my YouTube channel and you have questions, go ahead and post them. I'll get back to you within a day or two. So hope that helps, and we'll see you next time.